As we're getting towards the tail end of this course, I did want to highlight within the schedule some of the other things that are of major value when you actually go out and partake in these things, and that's events. I think events are a huge opportunity in terms of free learning, but also just a chance to remember like people are people and engage with all sorts of walks of life. There are so many different types of events that one can attend. It's not just meetups, it's not just lectures. So, some of the different types, of course, there's just generalized networking events. There's meetups, which are usually a little cozier and they're in person. There's webinars and digital events that are purely online. There's conferences that sometimes come with a ticket price, but can get you access to people that you would never stand to get in front of had you not shown up to the event. There are hackathons, which I think are fascinating. They're a little more tailored to blockchain, crypto, and Web3, but it is super interesting if you've never been a part of those. It's like 72 hours to build something really cool. There's job fairs, which can be really hit or miss, but a chance to find people that are hiring within your particular vertical or niche or not. Then there's pitch competitions, which is like pure startup vibes, and it's just a whole thing. I've included some resources here in terms of different ways to go out and find hackathons. Literally, they're a game changer if you're at all curious about blockchain, crypto, or Web3. Event directories are a dime a dozen. You start to kind of find your favorites, and I've already demonstrated how to go about getting into those and searching, but yeah, super easy stuff to really find stuff. I think it's important for people to be selective. When I say selective, I mean don't always try to go for the same types of events. If everybody at the event is a clown, it could just be a clown event. Now, that is a pure subjective statement, but there are good and bad areas of considerations to think about. For instance, if you attend an event and everybody there is entry level, you're probably at the wrong event. If there's a lot more experienced people, I think sometimes that's where the gold is, and you're able to connect with people that are actually working and doing the stuff that you would like to be a part of. If they're very small events, meaning less than 50 people, less than 20 people. I've been to events where it's less than 10. Those can be very intimate and interesting settings, but you really have to make sure that there's more than a few people showing up in order for it to be worth your while. And sometimes it's luck of the draw. If there is a price associated with these, figure out where that money's going before you show up. If it's just somebody that's trying to sell you something, that's probably not ideal and you probably shouldn't be going. If it's a bigger, larger event that has a 30, 50, $100 ticket, maybe if you buy further in advance, or maybe they have a job seeker special, maybe there's an opportunity to figure out how you can get in there. Most international large scale events, especially in Europe, have opportunities for people to volunteer, which means you get a free ticket for working one full day of said conference or event. That is a super huge opportunity to avoid paying potentially hundreds of dollars in order to network with other people that are like you, but also get free access to the event. It's awesome if you actually are able to reach out, find the organizers, and say, I'd love to volunteer. If you have to travel for events, make sure that it is a totally worthwhile one. You can burn so much time, effort, energy, and of course, money costs by going a long distance for something that may just be a total waste of time. Topics really, really, really important when you're trying to figure out if you can get something out of this and you can actually learn something. If everything is super broad, there's a high likelihood it's just giving small overviews to the audience on big themes, which can be a waste of time. There is good and bad within both of these. I used to attend 2 to 3 events on all sorts of areas when I was back in the States. It is less common to find great events in Europe, specifically within the Nordics, because networking with people in person, not as big of a thing. It is what it is. So finding events is pretty simple. You just need to use a number of the top sites, but you also need to filter by either the niche or the skill or the particular function that you're in. You can go through this massive list of directories and do that fairly quickly. I'm not going to show you how to use a filter or how to find different key phrases. You're going to have to figure that on your own, but try to find stuff that you can get into and attend an event, let's say once every 2 weeks. It's crazy how easy it is to do these things. So, what is the purpose of attending these events? Like, why even go? It's learning and networking, and that's it. Try to meet people. These people are going to be your new connections that may end up being the opportunities that you never saw coming that can either make that introduction or are potentially hiring and you just don't even realize it. I think a lot of it is interesting from the standpoint of new talking points and conversations because a lot of these events are literally on the bleeding edge of technology or whatever the industry is going after. So when somebody is talking about generalized industry information, you can reference stuff that you've been through, events that you've gone through, and you're like, oh, like this guy knows their stuff. I think it's also interesting to get really inspired and find new pathways, but ultimately it's on you. These are a lot of the in person types of experiences. Online, I find to be maybe a little less valuable because there is a difference in terms of you being actively listening, actively there. You don't have a bunch of tabs open, less distractions overall. You're able to engage with people, meaning you're talking directly with the speakers afterwards, which I tend to try to do because I just want to, yeah, I want them to remember me. I'm also speaking at a lot of different events, so it's super interesting to see the types of people that come up, and I always try to see if I can help them. There's all sorts of different ways to get deeper understandings and deeper, stronger connections if you're actually at the event and you're talking with people. I also think the one on ones and potentially what happens after the event can really be interesting. Maybe people want to go for a walk afterwards or organize a dinner or even have a few cocktails. Who knows? It allows you to stand out in a memorable way. And again, there is a notable difference between in person and online. We're in a post COVID world, right? So setting goals for each event, usually in person, is what I often do in order to make sure that I maximize the value that I'm getting out of it. That means that I want to ask at least one question of usually, like, let's say there's two or three speakers at a meetup. I want to ask at least one so that I feel like I've inserted myself into the conversation. I don't know. It's crazy. Maybe you want to speak to five strangers. Those are people that you don't know, that you've never seen before, but they look like they could be interesting, or they're interacting with people that clearly appear to be interesting. Or maybe you want to add five new connections on LinkedIn, at which case you want to reach out to people and be like, you seem like you know what you're talking about. I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn, find out what you know that I don't know. Or maybe just stay 25 minutes after the last speaker in order to make sure that you're getting something out of it in terms of networking. This is an interesting concept that I wholeheartedly believe in, and until it was explained to me, I hadn't been able to crystallize it in real thought. 10% of any group of people are cool people. So you just need to determine of the 90 other percent that's there, who is among that last little 10% that you really want to speak to. Those are the people that know their stuff. They're the high performers. They're the ones that are totally connected with all sorts of people. Usually they're not dicks because then they're part of the 90%. Find the cool people. And it's an interesting game. It gamifies the scenario. I have always enjoyed doing this, but it's a really cool ideology to be like, if I had to separate out the top 10%, who are these people and what do they do? And even use this as kind of like an intro where it's like, I've been trying to find the top 10% of the people that are going to this thing. I think you are in the top percent. Like, tell me about yourself. What are you working on? And that's an introduction. For those that don't know how to start conversations with strangers, this might be a bit of a slice of Americana, but we are great at networking because we really don't have the same filter in terms of I don't know this person. I'd like to have a little small talk starter and then get into something with a little more depth. You need to build rapport and ultimately at the end of the conversation, ask to connect on LinkedIn. This is a massive list of conversation starters at networking events. Crazy, right? So at the very least, come out of the gates with two or three of these chambered up here. You can always save this thing and then walk up to strangers and ask them, have you been to this venue before? That's the beginning of the conversation. Just something to kind of break the ice to get into a conversation. How did you get started in said industry? What'd you think about so and so speaker today? I really enjoyed this thing. What are your thoughts? And you'd be surprised. And if somebody gives a meh answer, and be like, well, I really appreciated your thoughts on that. I'm going to make sure that I connect with lots of people, but enjoy the rest of your evening. Seem like a great person. Whatever. It works, right? Down at the bottom, I've included the Troy Hawk link to the TikTok video because I just enjoy like the disarming compliments that this guy gives. You can use that at any event and it works incredibly well. So this is for the introverts among us. What if people are not my thing? And nobody's saying that you have to absolutely go to in-person stuff, by yourself, maybe you go with a friend. But if you are going by yourself, realize that there are other introverts that are there. It's just pure math, statistics. Of course, out of a group of people, not all of them are going to be wildly outspoken, gregarious characters. Find other introverts that are uncomfortable with the scene and be like, hey, I really admire you for coming out to this thing. I was nervous about making my way out there. I don't do a lot of events. Like, what's your secret? And then people open up. You're like, that's the whole game. Set meetings with attendees before you go. Like, hey, saw your background. You are a hustler, and I would love to connect with you if you have like 5-10 minutes after the event or even before. Like, I'm totally down. And you'd be surprised. People are like, yeah, I'm definitely going. I'll see you on Thursday. It is always interesting to go to these things, find a way to push yourself to get there. I think some of the most awkward people in the world have shown up to events. I've certainly met them, and you're by no means unique on not loving to meet a bunch of strangers that you've never met before. It happens to all of us. The last concept that I kind of want to float in your direction is maybe after attending a few of these, you start to realize that most speakers are average. That is, again, based on statistics, 50% or less are going to be below average. So most of them are not prepared. They're selling something, they don't know the subject all that well. And it turns into kind of one of those things where you look around and you're like, is anybody getting anything out of this? Happens to me all the time. That's why I became a speaker. So if you look at panels, I think they're even worse because it requires zero research, zero understanding of specifics, and you're all just there kind of pontificating off of each other. So they receive questions up front usually, so that means that they're not even really in a situation where they're actually riffing like on the fly. It's baffling to me that people like panels. Panels for most conferences are organized so that you can get sponsors to actually pay in order to sit on a panel and answer two questions for less than a minute at a time. It is a shame, but that is basically how it is. And this is kind of the same for all types of conferences and events. So if you are interested in being a speaker, holy smokes, maybe that could be my next course that I create. Let me know if that's interesting for you. I can show you how I've spoken at over 170 different keynotes, conferences, meetups, and events. And yeah, I'd love to build this, but tell me inside the Discord so I know that that's of interest.